So beautiful. Hey gardeners, today I'm repotting my Monstera. I just got this Monstera. It came in a 12-inch plastic pot, but I'm gonna put it into a 14-inch wide terracotta pot. I love terracotta. I think it's lovely for indoor plants. It looks pretty, it's classic. So let's get to repotting this Monstera. If you like, you can cut off any damaged leaves. This one is a bit sunburnt. We have some toddler damage here. All in all, this Monstera looks ready for its new pot. Let's pull off this plastic pot and see what's going on with the roots. There's not very many leaves in the back side of the plant here, so I'll lay that side down flat. The nice part about these thin plastic pots that they have at the nursery is that you can just give them a little bit of a squeeze and it helps the plant come out just a little bit more easily. Yeah, there's a few little baby roots coming out of the bottom. Pretty stuck in there. I'm going to use this trowel to loosen up the sides a little bit. There she is. This Monstera is starting to get a little bit root bound here. It's not the worst I've seen, but it probably would like a little bit more space. I'm gonna keep it small. I mean, root bound is not a bad thing. They kind of don't mind it actually. They're very tolerant of being root bound, Monstera. But I do want this in just a little bit of a bigger pot. So let's loosen these roots up a little bit. All I'm gonna do is gonna find these kind of big ones and help them escape that circular pattern that they're kind of growing in. I find that the roots of Monstera are pretty hardy, so when I'm repotting it, I don't mind to kind of loosen them up a bit. But if you don't see this kind of like total maze mess of roots right on the outside, if it looks kind of more like this kind of situation, I wouldn't mess with it. But if it's kind of more towards this kind of situation, I do pull out some of the bigger ones and just to let them know that they have some freedom to roam and to give them space to do so. All right, that looks better. So the mass of the root ball is still intact, but you can see that the bigger ones, I've kind of let them go free. I'm gonna get a little preview here and pop it in its pot just for a second. So I can see I'm gonna need a couple inches of potting soil underneath the root mass of the existing plant. So let's go ahead and do that. For repotting Monstera, I just use a regular organic potting mix, but I do look for one that contains quite a bit of perlite, just so that it has a nice airy soil. That's these little kind of white bits in the potting soil. So if you see lots of these little white bits, just make sure that you're looking at the ingredients. This particular potting mix is made out of cocoa coir with some peat, and it does have that nice perlite and some organic fertilizer. I'll put a couple options of some nice organic houseplant mixes that will be nice and airy for a Monstera in the description of this video. So if you don't know what potting soil to look for, just a nice light organic potting mix. So there's a few inches of soil in the bottom of the pot now. So we can go ahead and check the level at the top of the Monstera. I would like there to be a little bit of room at the top of the pot here, just for watering. It's nice for the water to be able to drain, but I'd like the top of the plant to be up around here. Okay, so I like that level. It's perhaps an inch below the top of the pot, so there's some room for water to sit there and nicely seep into the soil. I'm just going to center the plant though, and it's a little bit crooked. It's lower on this side, so I'll just put a bit of potting soil under it. And now I'm just backfilling the soil around the sides into that empty space, just gently with my fingers. here's how the Monstera is looking at this point in its repotting. You can see I had one victim here, one casualty, so I'll probably just trim this off, this leaf here. And then there was one aerial root. It looks like this aerial root here did get damaged during the repotting, so I'm going to trim that off. You can trim off the aerial roots if you don't like the look of them hanging over the side of the pot, but you can also just leave them too. They look kind of fun hanging over the edge, or you can tuck them back up into the soil as well. This one I'm going to remove, but I don't mind the look of them in general. I think they look kind of fun hanging over the side of the pot. Here's another aerial root. This one will probably find its way down into the soil if it can. Let's give it some water. I always like to give plants a good thorough watering after repotting. I'm gonna let this Monstera go wild and free. I'm not going to stake it, but you can totally stake a Monstera. Use a regular stake or a nice moss pole. A stake like a moss pole will kind of mimic a tree as if it were growing up a tree in nature. So that's a really nice way to keep it a little bit more compact if you want to grow it in the corner of a room or something and don't want it to totally take over. The other thing is timing. The best time for repotting Monstera is kind of early in the spring, maybe late in the winter. That's when it's probably going to be the nicest to the plant. The plant is dormant, it's not really busy putting on a bunch of new growth. The second best time is when you find a nice pot and you realize how root bound it is and it's time. So although it may not be the best, it's totally possible to do it at any time of year as long as you're gentle with the plant. So yes, do it in the early spring if you can. I'm a little bit late this year, it will be fine, but if you can do it in the early spring, that tends to be best. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the garden.